hello, and welcome to episode 171 in this series where I am programming an NES game live on Twitch from scratch. Let's get started. So last time we had wrapped up the export process, and things were looking good. Our level data export was looking the way it should. The map export was looking good. We actually have the map working properly here. So we're able to scroll and shoot, and enemies appear as expected. And we did run into a problem with the repeat scroll mode. And so one thing I did do was I changed in the map here, I changed the last row at the top to be the tiles of the grass so that we can see what's going on at the end here. Oh. So, all right, so let me back up here for a second. So what we're seeing is it is rendering that last row, and then it is picking up, drawing the repeat scroll here. But it is doing that at the end of it's interesting. So it appears that what's happening is we are getting the last row of the map drawing here at this location, and then the repeat scroll is starting at the very top of the namespace, name table, or bottom of the name table, I guess. And yeah, that's right. It seems like we should be, I mean, we're definitely not drawing in the right place. We should be drawing here, but for some reason we're drawing here. And so we are seeing this problem now, and it is, let's see, is it just consistent the way it's working? I mean, it looks weird, but it is working kind of the way that we need it to. Now the attributes aren't getting updated because they're not supposed to yet, because the that code was disabled. One thing I want to check here. It looks like it's the problem of, oh, you know, I just realized something. Well, you know, it's not important. I don't know how often we're going to do something like this, so I just want to see what happens if we reload the ROM into repeat scroll mode. Here, let's get out of the, I want to close the emulator and reopen it without the PPU viewer open so that the emulation can go as fast as possible. I want to see if we get through the repeat scroll, if that then works. I think what probably happened was in the original map build we just happened to match up properly, which isn't that out of the question. It's just, it created this side effect of what we're seeing now. But what I wanted to see is that if we do this now and we actually look at where we are with the repeat scroll, I want to see if it then will load the map in the same way. I have a feeling it will. So it's loading it right at the end of the bottom of the name table. There's no way to turn on the name table as the 4 separate boxes, but from an address perspective, it jumps from 23A0. Oh, did it do the? It did the same thing, it looks like. Let me rewind. It did the same thing, but at the bottom of this name table. Yeah, so we're just a little bit out of whack. Now, the good thing is that all of the drawing is actually correct. So we have a couple of options. The first option is we just say, okay, we won't. The first option is we fix it and we say wherever we were drawing, we should continue drawing and not draw from the bottom of the name table like we're doing right now. The other option is we say, who cares? Let's just adjust the map and the repeat scroll so that they fit perfectly into a name table height size, so that we finish at either the top of the bottom name table or the top of the top name table, and then we hit repeat scroll, and in doing that we eliminate the problem, because we're essentially taking advantage of the quote-unquote feature, right? So I'm disinclined to just take it as it is. Well, yeah, I mean, what I'm talking about is that, you know, even though that stuff is random, the length is not, right? The length is a fixed size, even in the repeat scroll. So that's really what we would need to play with. So for the level itself, it's we could calculate how off it is, but basically it looks like it's, you know, just a few rows too many. Even though it's weird, because I thought for sure that it was the right size. If we look at the size, it's 16 pixels. It's 170 tiles, meta tiles, at 16 pixels a piece. That's 2720, and the map, the screen is 240 pixels, so that gives us 11 screens worth of data. But clearly something isn't right, and I'm not sure how that is. I mean, let's take a look at the map immediately upon load. I mean, that looks pretty much right to me. Like, there's a little bit cropped off, but that looks right to me. It doesn't look like we're off by anything. Yeah, so it scrolled a little bit, but it didn't load too much or too little. So I'm not sure where the problem is coming in, unless there's some sort of bug with the... It's possible there's a bug with the scroll code where it's not actually loading what's immediately above that screen's worth of tiles the way that we thought it was. And that would be evident by, if we look at the name table here. How many tiles are we talking about here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's 10. So that's 80 pixels. And that doesn't fit into 16, does it? Oh, it does. It's 5. Okay. Is it 5 metatiles and tiled? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's actually correct. So I'm not seeing any issue with that. And as we scroll, you know, things are just doing what they need to. As we flip between what we're seeing with those seemingly random attribute updates is as we flip between the name tables, we're updating the attributes to match the name table that we just came from, which is why it looks like we're updating these out of order, but really what's happening is we're just copying them from one to the other so that they match, or not so that they match, just they end up matching as a result of that, which isn't a problem because that's sort of the expected behavior as we go and update the attributes for each name table because we're doing a coarse name table update. I really would like to know, there must be something in the code, it must be just something simple that is ignoring the current position of the updates in the memory of the name table, but I still don't understand why the map doesn't match 100% with the height that I expected. For the score, probably they'll just be sprites. The other possibility is to use, I'd implemented a while ago the use of status bar, which we turned off because we really didn't have too much going on that we needed it, I didn't think. Let's see here. It's so weird. What is this? This is 2280, and this is position 20. So, like, there are 30 tiles. Right? So if we said 16 by oh no, forget that for a second. 170 divided by 30, that's 5. Not 170. 170 times 2, because that's the 8 by 8, and then divide that by 30. It's 11. So that works out too. It's really weird. I don't understand why we're having this discrepancy. I don't think I changed the mirror. I don't think I changed the mirroring. I mean, it wouldn't matter, right? Like, what you would do is you'd have the status bar ends up in one name table, basically whichever one you're not using for the main game, in a position that should be out of the way, and then you're just flipping back and forth between the name tables. But yeah, I mean, I'll worry about that later. Using sprites probably works fine. Where do we still have that code? Yeah, we do. So we were just changing the scroll register. We were messing around with it. It's really, I'm not worried about that right now. Whatever we do, I'm sure I can make it work. You might be right. Maybe we were using vertical mirroring. But that's not that important. Okay, so if all of that should work, how is it that I'm getting to a point where we get to the top of this level and it didn't match up to the name table? And even though, in theory, we shouldn't care about it having to match up, the fact that I sized it to match up and it's not is problematic. So let's do this. If we took the size, right? Can I change? I don't know if it's possible to edit. Can you crop? Auto map. Resize map. So if I made this, let's see. If it's 30 regular tiles, that means it's 15 meta tiles. So if I said 45 meta tiles, obviously that's going to reduce the number of tiles here, which is fine. I don't care about that because this is just us testing this. If we go to the objects, I want to move these enemy objects up a little ways so that they are out of the main, or the out of the loading portion. So that would mean that we would have 3 full screens, right? We said 45 at 15 meta tiles per screen. So we export that. And then let's go rebuild this. Well, that's what I'm wondering, is if it should be accounting for the extra non-row of tiles, but maybe it's not. I thought we would have sorted that out a long time ago when we were working on the scrolling code, but it's possible that that's not true. Now it's working okay. We're still getting that little judder of the transition there, but now it worked totally fine. Still not sure what 100% what that judder is, but yeah, everything is working now as it's supposed to. Again, the attributes are not being updated, so that's why you have that green band there, but that's okay, right? That's so it was originally 170. Oh, is it because I'm in programmer mode and I'm being fooled by rounding? Yeah, I'm being fooled by rounding, damn it. It's rounding off because it was in programmer mode. That seemed wrong to me. Like there was something that seemed like it shouldn't be doing that. So if we wanted 11 exactly, we needed 165 as the height. Can I undo that resize? Oh, I can. Okay. See, that makes way more sense to me, because it was such a weird, bizarre thing that it wasn't ending, and I thought I had the right height, but obviously it was truncating the value and causing that problem. Another one of life's great mysteries solved. Okay. And that's a good thought, though, MDTA UK. I was, in the back of my mind, I was wondering if that was what was happening, but I was also not saying that because I was concerned that that would be possible given, you know, how long we've had the scrolling code and never run into this problem before. So now we're back to almost the original size of the map. It's a little bit shorter, but a little bit shorter to make it match the actual screen heights. So what we should see now is that the repeat scroll mode starts properly. You know, yeah, there it is. And again, the attributes are wrong, but I'm okay with that. Yeah, and you know, and like that's a good idea, because you know it's so easy to mess that up because it's such a weird quirk of the way that the name tables work. You know, it's totally, like I said, it was something that I was thinking about too, but I was just hoping that I was wrong. All right, so that proves that we don't support arbitrary map lengths. It has to be a factor of the size of the screen. And I don't know how much I care about that. Like, we just make it a map, always a map length, and we're fine. And the repeat scroll is working fine. Except for the attribute data, which I really don't want to deal with fixing right now. So, let me talk about this real quick here. Before I had manually copied and pasted this in, and then I said, oh, that's kind of a waste. And then I said, you know what, let's not worry about that right now. So what I was referring to was the fact that we are actually we're doing an inc bin here of the data rather than referring to a location. Like we could do something like this where we have and then right? And then whenever we want to reference that, instead of doing this, actually, no, sorry, we don't even have to do that. We can just do this. We could say, instead of referencing the file directly, we could do this. And then change the code to read the address here rather than the data. First, read the address, and then based on the address, read the data from that location. And it would make the code it would simplify some of the code. It would make some of the code more complex. So it would simplify the code that's iterating through the map data. And the reason is because right now, the code that's iterating through the map data, it needs to be really careful about how it calculates where the next level header or where the next bit of level data starts, because you have all this data that's mixed into essentially what's like kind of like header data. And then when it comes back here, it looks at the repeat scroll and whatnot. So it would be simpler because then you just only have the 2 bytes, so you know that the level data, the next bit of level data always starts here, right? It's just 2 bytes past this and you're here. The part that it makes a little bit more complex is that then you are tracking through the map data in a separate section of the ROM, which has some benefits to it. Like it could potentially the most obvious benefit is if you want to reuse a section of map, you just refer to it rather than having to include all the data, which is what this is doing. This inc bin is actually bringing the data in twice, which is no good because it's just wasteful. But that said, we've been working on the export for a while. I want to do an episode where we work a little bit more in assembly for a short period of time. This is going to be a shorter episode, just because I'm tired. And then we can come back to doing this. The other benefit is that then the actual raw map data could be somewhere else versus directly in line with all of this. So instead of, let's see, yeah, we could add something to the tool to give you an error if it's not a factor of the screen size. That's a good idea. Instead of including the binary data, could it be a bank? So keep in mind that if we did do something with banking, which it's possible to do, we have this bank here, which is our main, program bank 1. And then maybe we have another bank here, which is like program bank 2. And our level data is in here. Then that means that every time we want to load another row of our code, we need to swap to this bank, load the data into the PPU, and then swap to that bank. So there's a little bit of overhead. Obviously, the bank swapping isn't really that big a deal. Like the bank swap itself is basically considered like instantaneous. There's just a few cycles of the code that's necessary for doing the bank swap, but then you've got to add in the complexity of writing the code to handle the bank swap and make sure that your code that's doing the row processing is available in both banks in the same place, which means that you got to make sure that, you know, maybe it's like in the first part of this of both banks here. So it's an idea, certainly something to look into going forward. At some point I think it might have even been the last episode, I had looked at how much free space we have. NES SC is the space checker. So, I mean, we've got plenty of room in the other banks, but, oops, what are you doing? But the main program bank is getting a little bit full. We have a little bit of space in here. So about a K free. There's some other optimizations we can still do to reduce the amount of space we're using that we haven't done yet. So that's something we'll have to look into, because remember, we're using character RAM, so all that character data is being stored in this bank, and we are not deduplicating the individual tiles and storing meta tiles as references to the tiles. We are storing the individual tiles separately and then just using the meta tiles raw. So where we have a lot of these kind of repeating tiles in the in here where they're empty, you know, or the little wavelet is definitely something we could get rid of a pretty substantial amount of tiles by compressing that down. But you know, I don't know that we want to do that right now. Again, that's work that would be done in the export process, and then we would change our code on the assembly side to handle that. One of the things I did want to do is, you know, we were looking at it last time, that we have all this extra stuff that's here in the for the title screen in the character RAM, and I wanted to change the code up to eliminate that. Figured it would be something good we could do. It could be pretty simple and quick for a stream tonight, and see where we go from there. If we get it done faster than I'm expecting, instead of including the hard mode, could use the same maps but load a different set of objects. Yeah, exactly. The title screen tiles are only for that. So basically we our code is being a little bit lazy here because it's just copying everything, and realistically to start off with, the title screen goes to what, 58. So we could start by, let's see, so shooter.char, metatile.char, sprite.char. So shooter.char is just the title screen essentially. But yeah, so let's change this, and let's see here. Game character, temp pointer, entity pointer, load A, game character, temp pointer +1, entity pointer, load A, add 20, was that 64 to entity pointer. So we're just doing it by comparison there. Right? Load the temp pointer stored into 2007. Load temp pointer and add, clear and add, store, branch carry clear. We could do our little trick here if we wanted to. Load a temp pointer, compare it to entity pointer, and if it's not equal, then we go back to this. Otherwise, compare to entity point, these two together, and then we're done. So we're only doing that for, was that 64 tiles? But that, but that's a lot more tiles than, right? Because this is 255 tiles, and that's 255. So what are we doing here, actually? Oh, but each tile is what? Only 16. Is it only 16? It's 16 bytes, right? Or 64 bytes. Okay, so 64. We're doing 64 times 64. Is that 64 bytes, 64 times? Or we're not even doing that. We're just doing. Why did I write it this way? Oh, I'm adding that to entity pointer +1. So I'm adding 64 to the high order byte. That seems like sus code. Let's take a look at the PPU here. So that obviously didn't add anything to that. Let's, that was kind of dumb. I want to just add one. So that should copy, that should copy a decent amount of stuff, shouldn't it? Yeah. What did that copy? That copied one row of data. So that's 16 tiles. But why is that only 16 tiles? Oh, it's only 16 tiles because it's not 1 byte per tile, right? It's 16 tiles times. Oh, and the meta, right. Okay, so the meta tiles are 64 bytes, but they're really 4 tiles. So they're 6. I was right before. So it's 16 bytes per tile. 16 bytes times 16 tiles is 256 bytes, which is why this is enough to load. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely true. That's going to use, hopefully, I'm sure there's going to be some changes, but that should use. Where is it? Do I not have it on here? I'm pretty sure I've shown this before, but it's been a while, so where is it? So for those of you who haven't seen, the idea is to have the final title screen look like this, sort of. Oh, not that. This, there's some stuff missing because it needs to be done using sprites, but this is all the name table stuff. So yeah, it's using the entire name table here. So anyway, let's go back to the game ROM. Okay, so we've got let me document this because I totally forgot what this was even doing. Load the character RAM with rows of character tiles. Each is 16 bytes long, and each increment of enemy pointer +1 gets us an additional row. Alright, so right now this is loading everything. We can make this just load just the title screen, and then we can switch over to, alright, we're not quite there. Then we can switch over to reloading just the actual character data that we need for the levels. Yeah, there we go. So that's loaded sort of the bare minimum of tiles that we need. In order for the title screen to work. And so what we could even do this is load title screen character RAM dot assembler. Okay, and we'll go into so this should mean no change. Okay, that's good. Great. You can see there's a bunch of junk in here. It's just because if you don't clear out the RAM fully yourself, it will not be clear. Okay, so oh, I have word search. Okay, cool. So that's doing that. So now, after we're done. Well, that doesn't help. That was weird. I didn't take the entire thing. I just kind of set up the pointers and then returned from the subroutine. I wasn't kidding when I said I'm tired. It's just been, I feel like I've just been slammed for the last month. Okay, so then obviously, that looks kind of cool actually, but obviously now things are wrong because we don't have our tile data loaded properly for the ship or the enemies, but the palette data is right, so that's cool, but that's wrong. So now, well, it seems that way for this new job. My previous job, things got quiet at the end of the year because we were working on critical systems where nobody wanted us to touch anything in their environment, so it was a good time to like hunker down and work on stuff for next year. So it was generally pretty quiet. The only time anybody had anything that they needed from us was if there was some sort of critical bug that was discovered that they needed a fix for. But nobody was upgrading. Nobody wanted new features. Nobody wanted anything to be deployed because they just needed the system to work consistently and be available for them to put out what they were putting out. So with the new job, that part hasn't changed. Nobody wants us to deploy right now because they want it to be consistent for the end of the year and they don't want any new bugs introduced. But we have year-end goals that we need to make. So it's just been busy, like with everything kind of piling on for the year-end goals and then plus the holidays and stuff like that. So it's just been busy. Plus I have some other projects that I've been working on and trying to get stuff finished. So everything is just kind of slamming me here. All right, so we loaded the title screen character RAM. That all is fine. And then we're processing the game state. So in processing the game state, we want the game state table, and we have load title screen, process title screen, load new game state. So load new game state. For now, we're gonna do sort of a basic. We're gonna do something basic here. We're not gonna worry about like. Eventually, we'll probably need to load new tile sets that are different depending on like. No, I don't know. Maybe not for this, but we might need a subroutine that handles loading tiles for new for levels that are different than just the base tiles. I mean, in fact, probably we definitely will, but right now I just want to kind of mimic the functionality we had with getting rid of this portion of the character RAM, so that's no longer available. So I'm going to cheat a little bit. This, just to keep in mind, this title screen load is actually loading the tiles for the title screen by decompressing. We'd written a little bit of run length encoding just for fun way back, and that's all that's doing. This is the actual part that loads the tiles. So I'm going to cheat and I'm going to duplicate this file for loading the rest of the RAM. Eventually this will need to be more sophisticated, but what we want to do here is we want to load this, clear carry, add carry, what did I say? It was 55, 59, 59, and then what is that? we want to do this. We want to store that, and then the only thing we need to do differently actually is we want to, for that trick to work, we need to do this first, right? And then we're going to load this. We're going to clear carry and add carry, and then we're going to store this, and then what do we do? Do we load it and then I forget how that worked. It was a cool little trick, and now I'm forgetting how it worked because it was a little bit. It was a while ago when we did it. This is one of those things where if you're not doing it frequently, it's easy to forget these kinds of things because they're so just kind of ingrained into the language. Oh, so that's what it is. So you just simply add carry. Okay. That's what I thought, but I wasn't 100% sure on that. So I'm not going to do it in this one because I don't care about that. But here, I do care. So we're going to set this up to copy. I think this value needs to be potentially larger, but so we clear carry, and then we add, and then we're going to add carry, or sorry, we're going to store the value, but then we're going to add with carry entity pointer +1, and then we're going to store it in entity pointer +1, and temp pointer +1 also, right? Does that work for... I guess it does, but then we need to add back the value to this. No, sorry. Then we want to do this. Clear carry, add carry, 6 to... Let me think about that for a second. Yeah, that's right. You'd want to load just the level 1 character stuff. No, so all right. So we're loading this stuff, adding 6 to it. Or sorry, we're loading the high bytes. We're storing into these 2 pointers, we're adding 6 to this, and then we're storing it into entity pointer +1. So actually this should be that, I think. We'll know as I walk through it. So then we're getting this, and this is the base pointer, and we want to move past all the title screen stuff, so we're going to add 59 to it. And then if carry is still set, we're still going to store all of this, but we want to add temp pointer to it. So that it can be incremented by 1, or temp pointer plus 1. It can be incremented by 1 if we overflowed. So we store that. And then we're going to clear carry and add 6 to that value to get us entity pointer plus 1, because that's what we had over here. It was temp pointer plus 6 is entity pointer. So I think that's right. It's just the if this count is correct or not. I don't think it is, but we'll see. Where is process game state is this. So it is load new game, jump subroutine, load character RAM. We could even say, you know what, we can even rename this to load level character RAM. And eventually it will just load the character RAM for the right levels, but for now it's just hard coding it and going past the title screen. So it's pretty basic. Shooter.ism. Load character RAM, right, because I called it load level character RAM. So what we should see is that it should, oh, why didn't that work? Load level character RAM. Load A 0, store A into we should be doing a bit there to make sure that the latch is reset. I don't know that that is what the problem is, but it's still not good. Still didn't load the data. Let's take a look. Probably something ridiculously simple, but that's okay. So, all right, so we're getting AC, and we're storing that into temp pointer plus 1, entity pointer plus 1, and then we're loading A with 6 and clearing and adding AC with B2, and we're storing that into entity pointer plus 1. So then we're getting BD, we're doing a clear carry, and then we're adding 59, so the carry is set. So we're storing that into temp pointer and entity pointer, and then we're going to add entity pointer plus 1 is AC. So this should become AD now in the A. Oh, I was like, wait. AC. Oh. actually add anything except for the carry value. So whatever was in A was getting added in addition, which is not what I wanted. So this is AC. It should become AD in the register. It is. Store it into temp pointer +1, and then we're going to clear the carry, and we're going to add 6 to AD, which we did, and we get B3, and we're going to store that into entity pointer +1. Okay. Still wrong, but let's also do this. Let's move all of this stuff to here. I wonder if I am not stopping. It's weird that it's not loading anything the way that I expected it to. All right, let's loop through that code and see now what's actually happening, besides the fact that the address calculation was wrong. So let's see, temp pointer is AD18, and entity pointer is B318. Okay, that at least looks reasonable. If we go to the memory in here, AD18 looks like it could be some tile data, possibly. Where is game character? Game character is ACBF. And where is this starting? AD18. AD18. So it's not that far. Okay, yeah, that looks okay. And if we do just one more check, and we say AD18 minus AC18, it's 256. Well, that's not right, because what did I want? I wanted this AC, oh, it's ACBF and AD18. ACBF minus AD18. 59. Okay, yeah. That, other than typos with the calculator, that is correct. So let's step through the rest of the code, because that seems to be the next thing we need to check. So we're just looping through here and checking to see if temp pointer, which is 1C, or the bottom of the pointer is 1C, it gets to 18. So obviously we're just going to keep looping through. The thing that is interesting is that it doesn't seem to be actually updating this. That all looks correct, and it's storing it to 2007. So I wonder if there is some sort of issue with do we not have interrupts turned off or something like that? Oh, so I don't have interrupts turned off, and the background is still enabled, and all that other stuff. So that's not helpful. So let's do this. do this here instead. That might have been all that was causing that weird behavior. You don't generally want to be messing with the PPU while it's like, you don't generally want to be messing with the RAM while it's while the PPU is rendering, unless you know what you're doing, or it's a deliberate act, like you're specifically purposely updating it with stuff because you know that that's what you want to have happen. So let's see, it still didn't update this correctly. Now, keep in mind that the background tiles will be still wrong to some extent because, oh, you know what? I know why this is wrong. Okay, cool. Wait a minute. I figured out something, but just to finish that thought, this is going to be wrong. The background is going to be wrong no matter what because we're offsetting by these 59 tiles that were the title screen, so that's got to go away. It's kind of a cool effect that we're getting with this here, but I realize what I'm doing wrong. So I'm adding 59, but it's not 59. It's really 59 in hex, so 89 times 16 because it's 16 bytes. So we're going to add 590 to it because it's 59 tiles, but again, they're 16 bytes a piece. So we're going to add 590. So we got to add this here, and then in addition to this 6, we're going to add 5, which is going to give us 11. So, oh, but we don't want to do that to this. We want to do that to five, and then we can store that, and then we can do that. Okay. Yeah. All right. I think that will fix it. That's why we're still seeing this little wavelet showing up, because we are getting to some of the real data in here, but we're just not skipping enough. All right, you can see now we actually have, looks like it's most of the data. The palettes aren't loaded up yet. Let's see how this looks roughly. Yeah, so you can see this looks more like what we want. So what we can do now is change the export. I promise this is the only time we're going to change the export tonight. We're just going to change it not to export by adding to the base number like we were doing before, where it's incrementing by the title screen offset. So once we change that, we'll get a tile value that actually makes sense for the new tiles that we've loaded into RAM, and we'll wrap here. Realize not exactly our most exciting stream tonight, but we have some more exciting things coming now that this is kind of all coming together. Where the heck is this? It's in this process here. And then the other thing we got to do is we have that asset filler thing. All right, so this can go away. This can just become 0. And then are we... Using current BG tile, or are we calculating? Okay, cool. All right, so all right, so we've exported that. We've rebuilt it. Let's see if that is now all offset properly. Hey, look at that. The only thing that's not right is the sprites because we didn't copy enough data, but that is promising. So if we make this 8, I mean, I guess I could calculate what it needs to be. But where's the fun in that one? I can just guess. Yeah, so what we're going to see is there's going to be a lot of this. So if that's 6, each one of those is 16 tiles per row, then is that one? There's, what is there, 16 rows, and then we need to go into the sprites. So right, is that right? There's 16 because it's 16 by 16, 256. Yeah, so 16 gets me, let's just do that, right? That gives me the full set. And there might be junk in there, but that's okay. The main thing will be that it should have everything we actually need. Yeah, there it is. So there's some extra stuff that we're copying in to make that blanks out the sprite tiles there, but now we don't have the problem we had before where we were offsetting, and you can see we've got a lot more space visibly available in the character RAM, because we're not offsetting for a title screen that's no longer necessary. So that's pretty cool. And we should see the repeat scroll still works. Oh, you know what? That's going to be offsetting. That's going to be offsetting. Oh, it didn't. That's interesting. I thought for sure it was going to offset by the character, 59 or whatever, but oh, maybe because we're not doing that in the export process anymore. It's okay. In the mapping, that's in the level data. Okay, so that's cool. So what I really want to do next week, hey Johnny, I was thinking like 5 or 6, probably. I don't know how many stages, maybe 8. It depends on kind of how things are going and how everything unwraps. There's some ideas about stages. Oh, that was weird. What? I have to see why I was destroyed there, because I didn't see an enemy. But maybe the enemy was still there in the RAM or something, and I wonder if it's not checking the entity type and it's checking the sprite type. I have to look. We'll look at that next time as we're working on the levels some more. But yeah, that's what it looks like is happening. It looks like even though I destroyed that enemy, it's still somehow, well, that's really, I have to see what is, it could be a number of things there. So we'll have to look into that for next week. That will correlate to some of the, we'll have to also look into that, why it's still doing that juddering. But what I want to do for next week is I want to implement some different types of enemies. We had worked on, being able to spawn individual enemies and also have spawn points that can spawn multiple of a particular enemy type by setting them up in the spawn type object, and however many you want. So we need to create some more interesting enemies and work on how that's going to play into the levels. And for that, I need to think about a little bit more in terms of like what the levels are actually going to be, like even this first starter level, and see if that results in any changes that we need to make in the code or the levels or whatever, in terms of the implementation of the levels, not the actual, obviously the tile changes in the levels are not such a big deal. And then, like I said, we'll also need to look at why we get that weird judder and the artifacting that happens when we transition, because that's obviously not supposed to happen. But yeah, this is working pretty well. We have the ability to take our repeat scroll stuff here and make this work the way we want it to, with this sort of overworld map thing that we have. So we can actually see what the map actually looks like as we progress. So we'll play with that too, so that we can have that bigger view of everything, which is really cool. One thing we may play with in the export is, I think right now I'm hard coding what the camera length is. Yeah, so the camera start, it should be able to detect that and calculate that based on the length of the level. Even though it's not a real level, it's just repeat scrolling, but we have an actual length, so it should be able to figure out where the camera needs to start in order for it to figure out how much, how long it should run for, and then we can start, going through this process of having these levels and like figuring out, okay, this is what is in this section, then we have this other section, and we may need some additional art and whatnot, which is good. It's finally good to maybe need that, but we'll see when we get there, because like I said, I got to think about that. I got to think about what the level design needs to be, and then similarly, like what the enemies are going to be. Like, are we going to implement turrets, and how does that work? Is that just going to be a spawn point on the name table that spawns the bullets that have, the ability to essentially aim themselves based on the positioning of the player? I don't know. That's what we need to kind of figure out. So this will be, I think this will be cool because it'll be a little more creative, a little bit sort of blending the creative with the coding to get our results here. And I'm looking forward to that. I just have to like figure out what I'm doing here. And then a PSA for those of you who have pre-ordered the game and have access to the code. I will work this weekend to finally get the core engine code uploaded with the changes that we've been making over the past several months now, so that you have access to that and can look at that. If you don't have access to it and you're interested, like I've said in the past, you can pre-order the game. It's just $15. It's on itch.io. The link for it is in the YouTube video in the description. You get the game ROM and you get access to the code for the core engine ahead of time. I will eventually release the full game source, but not until the game is done, or like as open source, but not until the game is done, and not until probably like a couple of years after the final release of the game, so that it's inevitable that if you do something like that, someone will build the ROM and start distributing it for free. And while after a period of time I don't mind that, I have spent quite a bit of time and effort in building this. I think I have a right to control that release for a little while. And we'll see about physical cartridges and stuff like that. That's always been the goal, to have it be released via physical cartridge, because NES games, you want them on a cartridge. At least I do. Some people who like to have the ROMs because they like to run an emulator on their phone or whatnot, but that'll be an option too. Let's see, is there anything else I need to cover here before we wrap up? I think that's everything for tonight. All right, well, let me do my usual outro here. If you want to reach me, I'm on Twitter at Clairvis. Feel free to ask me questions there. You can email me at xelius@gmail.com, XELIUS. I'm also on Discord and at Video Game Sage as Xelius, XELIUS, but otherwise on Discord as Clairvis. Hey, Miralupa, I didn't realize you were in the stream. Hey, one quick question. We were talking about a suggestion you had made, another stream, and I was referring to your suggestion, and I didn't know what your preferred pronouns are, and I apologize if I had used the wrong ones, but please let me know so that in the future, if I refer to your suggestions, I can do it appropriately. So anyway, then feel free to comment on the video in the comment section below the description on YouTube. I do have a Patreon. I do have a Buy Me a Coffee. Both of those are totally optional. That's just people who want to support what I'm doing here and feel the desire to do it. I appreciate it greatly. I appreciate all the people who have stuck around and are waiting for zero-page episodes to drop. Please be patient. I promise there will be more coming. I just need to find the time and energy to do them. The next one will be on the PPU, as I've said before, and accessing hardware. So just keep pestering me. I know a few people have been asking for them more and more recently, and I understand, but it's just a lot of editing work. So so have a good night, have a great weekend, and take care.